Everything good in life is forged on the anvil of adversity. We want to start a movement of high achievers that have the courage to fashion a life of greatness. A movement of those brave enough to face the fires of self-improvement on the journey to peak expression. Smiths build things. Smiths get the job done. We are All Smiths. Welcome to the All Smith Project, where greatness is forged, not found. The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the All Smith Project. I'm pumped today. I'm connecting with somebody that I've looked up to for a very long time, and I feel like he's lived multiple lives. He's a performance coach, a former strength and conditioning coach with the New York Jets, a yogi, a family man, a handstand enthusiast, as well as a world record holder. He's an endurance athlete and prides himself on helping others. I'm excited, guys. Today I'm going to introduce a real-life legend, Mike Aidala. Welcome to the show, man.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bryce. That was quite the intro. Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very fortunate, man, on this incredible listening tour that I've surrendered to and put myself out there on in these last 3 years now, man. You've been on my list for a long time. Your humility, your ability to seek edges, your ability to open your arms and give hugs and serve people. It's quite impressive, man. So I really appreciate you carving out some time around this holiday season to connect with me. And even though we're not in person today, I can feel your warm, calming energy that I'm sure you use in your coaching services and your men's groups. So I really, really appreciate you being here today, and thank you, man.
Yeah, well, I'll share that right back at you. I really feel that same energy from you as well. I know you do a lot of coaching also, so I'm really looking forward to connecting and seeing what we get into today.
Absolutely, man. I don't normally do this, but I'm gonna try something a little different today. And
Cool.
you know how at the beginning of many sessions or coaching sessions, people lead with a little bit of an icebreaker. There's a few little fun things that I wanna tinker with today to get to know you a little bit better on a personal level. And then we'll dive into some of the amazing things that you do as far as helping people, and obviously the incredible world records that you've participated in. But I'm curious, Mike, what's the best advice that you've ever received?
Honesty. My mom, like, be honest. My mom would harp that into me growing up. Any little white lie, any small lie, she was always telling me, just be honest. I don't care what it is that happens or what you do, just be honest with me. And I didn't necessarily love it at the time or understand it, but now as I get older and I'm working on attuning myself with my own truth, I really realized that's everything. Being honest with how I think, how I feel, what I like, what I don't like, and having the courage to express those things.
That's such a great answer, man. And it sounds cliche and sounds like an easy answer, right? But when you unpack that a little bit deeper, it's like, what do you really want? And that's easy to say, right? You write it down and it like seems sexy and you like hand it in as a homework assignment. But when it's like your honest truth and it's in your soul and your heart, and you unpack that as far as how you think and feel when you look yourself in the mirror, when you brush your teeth, true honesty means you're going to have to say no to quite a few things. And then you're going to have to say yes to the things that really light your heart on fire. So I really appreciate that answer. That's a really good one, man. What's the worst advice that you've ever received?
Mm, if you're 50% or more involved or wanting to do something, go for it.
Mm. Help
I
me
think
understand that a little bit more.
I think there's I think there's value in like going for things in your life for sure, but 50% I think is a little bit low in terms of trying something new. And it can be, I mean, I love doing new things all the time. So I
Yeah.
know it's kind of like a weirder answer from me, but um, I think people pull triggers on different activities or relationships or moving when it's just like a 50% they're sure about it. And I think getting a little bit more confident, stepping a little bit closer to whatever it is, that thing that you want to do, is can help in the longer term of your version of success.
Yeah, for sure, man. Before I get into the next question, this explanation that you just provided leads me to think and wanna tinker a little bit with the word confidence. You've posted a few times around the question, how do you gain confidence? And you've talked about closing the gap between deathbed values and actions. Will you share a little bit on that for me?
Yeah, I love talking about deathbed values, especially
Yeah, let's
around
bet.
this time of year. I appreciate you watching that on what I've been sharing. So, deathbed values is really looking at your life from the back end um, down. So, thinking about if you were on your deathbed, 100 years from now, and you lived the most epic, perfect life, you have no regrets, what would be the activities that you poured your time into? What would be the things that you spent that most valuable asset on? And then, for me, they're my health and my wellness, my quality time with friends and family, my business and the impact I have on the world, learning new things, and then peak experiences or like states of awe, or like when you're on the top of that mountain or you're traveling to a new place. And so those are my five values. Those are my deathbed values. And so, in order for me to feel like I lived an amazing life, every activity that I do needs to fit into these categories. And things that don't fit into these categories are things like going out and drinking. For me, that's not quality time with my friends or my family. Playing video games, owning a TV, different things that suck away that most valuable asset. And so when you start to live a life designed around your values, you are living with integrity. Based another way, living with self love. I kind of pride myself on being able to talk a little bit about this human performance space, mental performance space from like a yogi, more like softer side, and then like a strength and conditioning hard side. And extreme ownership, Jocko Willing style, and self-love are the same thing. And so when we're living that life designed around the actions that we truly care about, that builds confidence more than anything else, builds the most true confidence.
I love that. It also gets into peak masculinity is this harmonization between the soft and the hard, the yin to the yang. And I think sometimes the dosage of that gets misconstrued. The perception of masculinity is like, lift the weights, do the hard thing, rah, rah. But unless you have the ability to recharge, to love, to sit with the discomfort of certain emotions, deconstruct and untangle some of the traumas that we've all experienced, which just happen within the journey of life. I think that's really profound the way you described that because it is, you do need both. And I'm sure you experienced that while working a little bit with some of the NFL players that you cross paths with. You can't be all one thing, man. You definitely need a little bit of the two sides of the coin and the dance between the left side of the spectrum and the right side of the spectrum because the answer is typically somewhere in the messy middle.
Yeah, there's this great book that I was introduced to for over a decade ago called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And those are the four archetypes of the complete masculine. And so we think of king energy, that's, making sure you're financially stable, you can maintain order within your household or your community. Warrior energy is a lot of the masculinity you just described, like maybe Goggin style, right? Like we need to take care of our physical vessel and be able to handle ourselves physically. That'd be the warrior energy. Take action on things. Magician energy. This is like the wizard, the mystic, the spiritual aspect of your life. And then lover energy, which is how we can love for other people, ourselves, the planet, animals, all of those aspects. And so if you think now about a person or people in your life who have all four of those, it's very rare because it takes a lot. A lot of people have three or two, but to develop the time and create the time to pour into all of those aspects is something I really try to do and talk to a lot with other people, my clients as well, on where in their life are they missing some of this energy that could be leading them to feel that they're not enough.
That's a really great way to describe that, man. It's challenging because sometimes like you lean into the king or the warrior or the magician or the lover and you find, oh, this is working. I'm feeling good about my life. And then it isn't until you hit some sort of roadblock or some sort of wall that you can't really move past and you battle this feeling of stuckness or stagnation. And then all of a sudden you start to self-reflect and question. And then it's like, oh, I'm actually missing this element of my life. And then it becomes this intrinsic attempt to try to sharpen that sword, or wow, I can't do this alone. I actually need to seek help from a coach or a therapist or a significant other or a friend, or I just need to shift my environment and get around the people that understand these four very important value systems, and let's work on improving all of those together. And I actually think you really do that, man. As far as bonding and tribe mates, I mean, I see the amazing Colorado fitness community that you spend time in. And when I'm looking at Eric Hinman and Sam Dancer and Matt Bickle and Bo Doring, it's just like, man, you're around people that are high performers. These are all great friends of mine who give really awesome hugs, by the way, like real hugs, not just like a little side hug. And then like the dopeness and the depth of conversation with those guys. It's special, man. I've been fortunate to cross paths with them and have most of them except for Bo. I got to get Bo on the podcast. What's that like? What's the Colorado fitness community been like for you? And what does that mean in relation to filling the buckets within the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover?
Yeah, I mean the Colorado fitness wellness community is strong. Like you just mentioned, those are four of my best friends. I get to see them not every day, but as often as possible. And so it feels really good to have brothers around me that if I need to call Matthew, for example, if I'm struggling with something internally, I can reach out to him and we have time to connect. Or if I need to reach out to Bo, we can connect in that aspect. Oh, I think I got that thing on.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, he's getting his cold tub delivered. We're going to hit a little pause on our conversation and we will be right back. Move fast and break shit. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer. The zipper pocket is an absolute game changer. I go from training at the gym directly to meetings, running errands, or prepping for podcasts. The LSKD tribe has become true family, and we are excited to continue to develop our community. Shop now at lskd.com and use code ALLSMITH. We chase the vibe here at AllSmith. Let's all become 1% better every day. And we're back, everybody. Mr. Mike Aidala is now hosting an event this upcoming weekend and has some cold tubs that are being delivered to his house. I'm pumped to chat about that a little bit later, man. Like cold
Yeah.
therapy has been something that it's been a game changer, man. I mean, it's all over the internet, but it's like when you actually practice it, you can actually remove the nuts and bolts around the scientific everything around norepinephrine and the dopamine and how long and how cold. It's like if you get in that thing, you practice the art of down regulating, let it touch your thyroid and kind of your vagal nerve. You just get out and you feel better, and life is a little bit easier. What does cold therapy mean to you, man?
I think you just said it. I like to keep it really simple. Cold therapy is something that everyone with a cold shower can do. It's accessible, right? We were talking about friendships before. Maybe not everyone immediately has the access to a community that they feel comfortable in, or that can push them in those four different areas. But a lot of people have access to a cold shower and can do this. Just turn their wrist and get that water cold, and it relates to something that we all need support with, which is our nervous system and being able to receive an external stimulus, in this case the cold water, and then practice our response to that stimulus using our breath, and a tool that we're doing constantly throughout our life. And so you can take that same awareness to the stress, which could be your kids yelling at you, a partner, something with work, really anything, even like a video you watch or something stressful in the world, and practice having that down regulated response so that you're able to come and connect with people at a more neutral level.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to think about it. It's also something that I don't know, in my opinion, it's time efficient and it's almost like a life cheat code where it seems very anxiety ridden, but the more you do it, at least for me, my self talk has kind of become this is challenging, but I always appreciate when I participate and I'm enrolled in cold therapy, and I always regret it when I choose not to. And it truly adds value and makes a lot of my life better. Not to mention, it's even better when you get to share it with a community.
It's a lot. It's hard doing it on your own.
Oh yeah.
I think, if I'm being honest, it's fun doing it with other people. They can, just like working out, just like anything that you do that's difficult is better to do with community. Like, I mean, I've been really thinking about the connection equation, and it is just doing things that are difficult with people equals deeper connection.
Hmm.
And so there's no negatives on getting in the cold water. You're not going to get hypothermia. You're not going to get frostbite. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. You're just going to be uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
then when you get out, you're going to feel amazing. And so it's been a really cool practice. Um, I've been doing for maybe 8, 9 years now. And I'm really fortunate to be working with Edge Theory Tubs, which makes a portable tub. And they just delivered to my front door. Actually, they're delivering right now at the corner of my eye. That takes away the friction of the tub. The water is constantly clean. It's always cold. I can wake up, get right into the tub, get out, and start my day. It's easier said than done, but it's nice when you have access to things that are going to help make your life better.
Yeah, that's rad, man. Yeah, the convenience factor associated with the cleanliness, the water circulating, the ability to keep it cold with the chiller consistently is significantly better than spending $100 on ice every few days or having a bunch of buddies come over for a sauna ice party and then needing to set up all the ice. I get it. I am very process oriented, so I do appreciate those elements, but it is a little bit easier when it's just cold and clean all the time.
Totally. I mean, it comes back to those values, right? Those deathbed values. Like, I don't own a television, I don't own a video game system. Those things to me aren't as valuable as an expensive cold tub. Like the water circulation, the chiller, the cleanliness, it's an investment, but it's one that I'll use nearly every single day, and I think will pay off in how I feel and how I relate to the external world, which is literally everything. My
Hmm.
perception of how I think about myself and other people and my purpose and my life is directly how I view about my life. And so if I can invest in things that are going to support that and move it in a positive direction, I am all in.
That's rad, man. What does your cold therapy look like? Is it something that you prefer to use in the morning, kind of pre workout, pre day? Is it something you like to integrate in the evening? Do you wake up and just get straight in there? What does it look like for you?
I historically have done it in the evening time, like before dinner, as when I really like to do it. And I mix it with my sauna, a Sisu sauna, which is another one of those investments that is tremendous. Like, I feel so great and look forward to that time in the sauna. And so I'll do a contrast, usually like 20 to 30 minutes in the sauna, 3 to 5 minutes in the cold, and I'll go back and forth from there. And then I come inside, I'm feeling super relaxed, eat a nice meal, and my body's just down regulated, feeling good um, for the nighttime, and helps my sleep tremendously.
That's awesome. I've been fortunate to about 2 weeks ago I connected from with Pete from Sisu. We had an awesome conversation around sauna therapy and the amazing Hoom heater. And then I don't know, a few months ago I was able to connect with Eric Hinman, and we talked about the rounds and kind of the sauna gatherings prior to the consumption of a nice meal, and how it really connects with one of the very important elements of ancestral living, which is just that bonding component. For me, the sauna and the cold started as like me wanting to practice the art of exposure therapy and contrast and all these shifts in physiology and the sensations that I was feeling. What it turned into is, rather than going to the bar to get drinks or eating nachos with buddies, it was, hey, this is actually our social time. The depth of conversation and how we can connect using these two modalities has become a really magical element of my friendships. And so it's so fascinating how we think it's going to do one thing, and it still does that, but then it actually unlocks another level that I wasn't even thinking about at the onset of the investment.
Totally. That's like, I think the most important aspect of it is the community aspect. It's the thing that we all fear the most is social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And so can create places where we have that quality time. That's really the key word in those five values that I described in the beginning is a quality time with friends and family. I remember when I played college football sitting around with my teammates and we're just watching a movie, or everyone maybe on their phone, or it never felt like there's the time was valuable with them, and I always wanted more, but maybe felt like it was too much because I can be a little bit intense in how much connection I like to create. um, but yeah, the sauna and the cold is something that's accessible to everyone, and I think that you need to have a visceral response, or you don't need to, but it's easier to create change when you viscerally feel something.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people like going to work out, because then they're sweaty, they're pumped, they feel like I did something. When it's harder to feel that with like a meditation or a breath work or a journaling practice, because you don't necessarily viscerally feel different. But
Mm-hmm.
with the sauna and cold, you do get that same response, and so it's easier to continue that positive habit.
It's a really good observation. It also, I think, gives great insight into the magic of your coaching services and your unique ability to help others, because people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, it shows that you have this great perception and unique ability to connect with people. You crave the connection in return in some ways, so that also highlights the fact that you're really good at the giving component of connection and making people feel seen, heard, and understood, which is really important in the men's groups that you've created, man. I mean, men need other men. And I think in a world where so many men feel isolated, they feel like they need to internalize their problems, bury them, in fear of looking weak, in fear of sharing their vulnerabilities, that they're going to get depreciated or their ego is going to get demolished. How did you ultimately formulate these men's groups? And what's some of the secret sauce that you use to help create buy in, connection, and change in some of these very high performing men?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I want to make an analogy with what you just shared. I love making analogies with fitness and emotional wellness. And so when you are getting stronger in the gym, or any guy that's listening to this, when you're getting stronger in the gym, you understand you need to break your body down. And sometimes that means that you'll fail. And then your body recovers and you feel stronger. That's a very vulnerable process, because when you come up to the bar and you're trying to do a max clean and jerk, you're going to miss it. And then you're going to have to come back up again and gain more confidence. And maybe you make it and you're successful. And that same aspect of vulnerability comes into these men's groups, where you need to share your struggles with pornography, right? That can feel like really vulnerable to put something like that out there. But then once you do, that weight's lifted off of your chest, you gain more strength in your ability to be vulnerable later on. And then maybe you can ask for some sexual needs that you might have from your partner versus holding those in, building resentment, and then it comes out in these weird other ways. I'm just using the sex one as an example because that's one that really hits for a lot of people because it's something that a lot of people have shame around and we don't
It's
verbalize.
very prominent too. I mean, here in San Diego, we work a lot with the special forces and military personnel, and there is an element of loneliness, and there's isolation, like you talked about before. And when they get deployed or they're out on ships for a while, it's like it's very easy to turn to porn and turn to things that feel like that immediate dopamine hit, not realizing the detriment that it's causing to the emotions long term, the physiological detriment, the physical detriment, and then the mental and emotional side of things too, as it creates a false perception of reality with your partner, unless, like you said, you openly and honestly communicate those needs.
Yeah, back to honesty, right? Like
Exactly.
that's the key. What are we what are the actions that I'm taking and then why am I taking them? What is something missing? Am I not communicating something? Do I not understand it? And so these are a lot of questions that I'll pose in the men's group. Questions that get guys to think about their actions and their desires and their wants and their goals and their purpose and their mission. And they're questions that oftentimes they have not been asked before, which makes sense because it's not, I don't think it's our friend's job to really push us in these certain ways. It's great if you have someone that can do that, but I think it is the job of a coach to ask you those questions, push you to a little bit to levels that are deeper, and then hold you accountable to your answers and say, "Hey, you said that quality time with your kids was really important, and you wanted to put your phone away when you got home. Did you do that? No. Okay. What got in the way? Okay, what can we put in place so that that doesn't happen in the future? Or maybe that goal's too hard. We're constantly modulating the challenge that I'm giving you versus with the skill that you have, which is the same thing in training, right? Like you're an extremely accomplished athlete. And so if I tell you, Bryce, your goal is to make 1,000 3-pointers in a row. You know, I don't know, you're a pro athlete, but I don't know anyone that can make 1,000 3-pointers in a row. So that challenge might be too much for your skill,
Yeah, way
and
above my pay grade.
you'll become anxious about that. Versus if I say your job is to go into the basketball court and just you have 1 hour to make 1 3-pointer. That challenge is too low for your skill, so you'll become bored. And so, if we're talking, we take that same analogy and put it into your emotional health or maybe your mindset or a relationship and say, hey, you're struggling to feel this, to connect with your buddy, right? What's the challenge that we can give you? Is it sharing something vulnerably with him, asking him to maybe have a deeper relationship with you, telling him that something bothered you that he shared? Where on your emotional skill level are you that you can do that? And then pushing you just a little bit further, just like in training, a little progressive overload
Hmm.
so you continue to get stronger. But I see oftentimes guys like, I need to do yoga, and they'll go into like a Kundalini yoga class, and it's like way over their pay grade where they're like, whoa, this is so weird. Like, from what I've been naturally doing, yoga's not for me. And it's okay, maybe you need, you know, a more beginner intro class so you can start getting used to it again, taking the actions to build that
As
confidence.
humans, we love the extremes, man. And I think the secret sauce is in the consistent application of reaching for the low hanging fruit. And then when you've proven to yourself to do that for a consistent amount of time, then it's like, okay, now we reach for the next fruit. But inevitably, like you said, rather than practicing the art of consistency, we want that progressive overload and that feeling of, hey, I'm seeing change, I'm feeling change, so I'm going to reach for that next apple. And then we do that 2 or 3 times, and then there's an apple way out of our reach, which leads to people getting discouraged, not wanting to play anymore, or injury. And then inevitably they're actually back down to the ground where they've got to start over, and that low hanging fruit is either not motivating anymore or it's not present. And this is what I see in a cyclical experience with regards to people that are on their fitness journeys. The secret sauce is consistency. It's the mastering of the mundane. And then over the course of time, you build that foundational base, which gives you the freedom and opportunity to then try new things, exercise new feats, progress maybe outside of the gym and do things like the endurance things that you pursue, some of the strength pursuits that you pursue, just as small examples. Well, not small examples, but as examples. It's just an interesting component, man. But going back to your men's group, how did you develop the philosophy to want to do that? Was there an intrinsic need or a service that you wanted to provide? Where did the ideation come from? And then what was the process of formation for you?
I love that question. I'm finding myself wanting to comment on the thing that you just shared. I'm going to do a quick comment on that and then come back to how I started the men's groups. The the issue with what you just described is not an issue of either discipline, I think, or consistency. It's just a poor goal setting,
Mm,
right? If you have these like solid goals and we're moving up, and then all of a sudden we see one that's too far and we attempt that, it's not that that's a bad goal. It's just not the correct goal for you right now. And so adjusting and finding like an art of fulfillment in that like next little step, all of a sudden you'll get to that bigger one.
yeah.
So if anyone resonates with that, think, okay, maybe my goal's too far. What's one that's just a little bit higher than the fitness goal I have right now? And oftentimes that can just be more awareness. Like we can talk a lot about that with handstand later on, but that's the thing I love most about handstands. But I'll get to the question with the men's groups. I felt a lack of community with myself and with other guys. I grew up playing a lot of team sports. And even though in that example I gave earlier, I'd never, not never, but it was rare to find that deep connection. And I was working with a lot of people individually. And something that a lot of men were saying was, I struggle to have this type of relationship with other men. And so I took all of these different themes and exercises and things that were coming up a lot with my one on one clients and put them into a curriculum. And then I invited and put out that curriculum and sold out my first program. And it's been an amazing ride for the past 5 years of getting guys to really invest in themselves and then invest in the other men within the group and work through these things on a weekly basis and really notice like a tremendous change because they're putting in the action.
That's powerful, man. I think that's really cool. Like typically what we give to others is also something that is some sort of a need for ourselves. And not always, but some of the time. And it's special because it's close to heart. And you're like, okay, if I can solve this problem for me, the lover and the giver in me wants to now solve this problem for other people and give them tools in their toolbox to then elevate their lives as well. And then it creates a domino effect. I love the way you said not only investing in themselves, but then investing in the other men as well and their tribe members. And it creates like a real life LinkedIn where it's like you have the hub of self-care and discipline and the core values, and then branches start to sprout from that, and then those branches connect to other trees, and all of a sudden you have this high performing jungle of people that are playing and swinging from tree to tree and building memories, but also gathering fruit and making sure there's safety and nurturing and holding each other accountable when maybe somebody bleeds outside or makes some decisions that aren't in alignment with their true core values. At least that's the vision that I'm seeing, just because you said you like to make analogies.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's it's pretty common in a lot of the groups that I'll run. Guys are like, I want to share this stuff. I want to become a coach. I want to pass these things along because they've created such an impact for me. And I think as men, we do really want to provide resources to other people and to share the things that are going well in our own lives. And that's my mission. My mission is to spread this message. So I love that aspect. I love when people tell me that they want to become a coach or want to hear about the story or want to hear how they improve their own journey so that they can share this work with others.
That's cool, man. Has there been any particular highlight from a men's group that stands out to you that like, whoa, that was like life defining and something that will stick with me for the rest of my life?
To be honest, there's a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff that comes up because guys that join the group the majority of them haven't been in a peak performance men's group before. They've maybe been in like AA or a church group or a therapy group, but um, I view myself like as someone who can push and who can really encourage. And so that in my mind is a lot of love. I can really breathe into these men and encourage them to start a new business or to express openly with how they're feeling about something. And those are the most impactful ones for me when maybe a guy has a struggle with his dad or with his sister or his brother, and we kind of talk through it. I'm on the outside. I'm not emotionally invested in his life. I mean, I care about him like I care about all people, but it's different. And so I can kind of say, hey, these are the cards that you've kind of laid out. This is the move that you want to make. Here's like 5 different options for how to move in that direction. What do you think about these two? These two sound good? Awesome. When are you going to make the phone call? What are you going to say on the phone call? Okay, put it in your phone, schedule it out, and we can make it happen. And then they do that, and they call me back and say, oh my gosh, my brother was thinking the exact same thing that I was. We haven't connected in 5 years, but he's flying out here. We're going to do a weekend hunting trip together. They do the trip, it goes amazing, and bam, they're off to the races. And so there's been a lot of stories, kind of in that regard. Or even in a business, I really want to start this business, I'm nervous to start it. Breathing encouragement into them is something that I pride myself on doing.
That's amazing, man. It's also very apparent that you have this deep level of curiosity at the onset. And then that's like the big kind of portion. And then you start to funnel them a little bit. And you do this amazing job of, okay, here's what I'm hearing. And you're almost mirroring them to make sure that like what they say and what you hear are the same. And then simultaneously creating actionables and holding them accountable to those actionables around when are you going to schedule that call? What is the date? Let's have a timeline. Let's have a deadline. And then what are you going to say? You get specific where you start broad and inclusive, and then you eventually narrow them down to the actionables and the reality of what that experience is going to look like. And I know you're a big visualization guy. You do an amazing job describing that prior to showing some of your very cool lifts on your social media and your Instagram. Is that what you're trying to share with some of these members of your men's groups? Is okay, this is what you're saying you want. Let's work backwards and create a progressive goal setting component so that way you can ultimately get to where you want to get to. But then also, let's play with the art of visualization. What is that going to look like? What are you going to feel? What are you going to wear? Where is this conversation going to take place? What are you going to ask? Are you going to start big and have some icebreakers, even though it's been an awkward relationship with that person for a while? Or how is that going to go? How are you going to soften them so they're ready to receive what you're going to say? So it's not just jumping into some sort of transaction.
Yeah, 100, all of it. All of that is fantastic because they're almost living through the experience before they have the experience,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can take away some of that friction. We're like, oh, I've kind of been here before. I have an idea of how it's going to go. Now all I can focus on are the things that I can bring to the table. I can make sure that I'm coming to this, say it's the meeting with my brother, like well rested, well fed. It can just breathe love into the connection because that is all that I want. All I want is to have a loving relationship with him. So if I just view that interaction through that love lens, then I can't lose. I literally can't lose. I can't control how he's going to react, but I can control what I'm bringing to the table. And when people, I mean men specifically, because we're talking about them, focus on that, it they're winning at their life. They're living a successful life.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I heard Will Smith actually say it. He was asked if you could have a law that you made that everybody in the world had to follow, what would that be? And his response was, I would ask that everybody had to repeat the question back to the other person prior to responding, just to ensure that the communication was clear and that what was said and what was heard were in alignment. Is this something that you practice often? Because sometimes when emotions get involved, communication can get a little bit volatile. Is that something that you use, or what are some of the secret weapons that you use in the art of communication to make sure that you're steering people in the right direction, but simultaneously also leaning in towards the harder conversation to not just be like a yes man and only practicing empathy and compassion, but also pushing them and helping clear the fogginess out of their lenses?
Yeah, I think that that's a great technique. I learned about that technique a while ago in therapy. Repeating those things back, it can kind of slow me down. I personally have a tendency to move fast and a lot of like fire high energy. And so the more I can create space between that external stimulus, which is something that someone else is saying to me, and my response to that, it allows me to pause and think, drop more into my heart space, and then articulate something that I truly feel versus just react. And learning how to extend that pause is a superpower. Breath work is one that often gets put in there. Taking extended exhalations will help your nervous system down regulate. Again, this is what you can practice when you're in the cold water or the sauna as well. That's your your cellular system doesn't understand that necessarily the difference between your partner yelling at you and the cold water. It's both. It's in shock, and so you can get a lot of practice um, calming down that system. So then, when your boss or your kid or your partner does maybe bring some energy towards you that you would normally respond sharply to, you can take some slower breaths and then make a response that's in more alignment with your truth.
Yeah, Mike, that's good stuff right there. The analogy that's coming to mind around the concept of the power of pause is if me, you, and a couple other people jump into the pool and we're all volatile and fighting and a little bit all over the place, there's going to be a lot of splashing and bubbles, and there's not a lot of clarity. But if we all just pause, kind of exhale a little bit, we're going to sink to the bottom of the pool. The bubbles will dissipate, and then the lenses get clear. And I can see you, you can see me, we can see the other people that are involved in that arena as well. And the ability to enhance that pause enhances the clarity, because it leads to, okay, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? What are the solution based actions that will move the needle in the right direction towards where I want to go? And I've heard you talk about the power of pause a lot. I know it comes from that Viktor Frankl quote that we talk about often, which is between stimulus and response, there's that space. And within that space is our power to choose. And I'm sure for you, being such a high performer and that fire like energy, inevitably this conversation or this internal self talk probably lands on your lap pretty often during some of these challenges that you participate in, whether it's a very lengthened endurance feat or the Turkish get up pursuits that you've had to lift the most weight within an hour, or some of the other lifts that you've done with the barbell. Is that something that you really have as a part of your core values? Is this power of pause and the ability to optimize your decision making in the midst of stress?
Definitely. Yeah. And I would say those things like running 100 miles, doing the heavy Turkish get ups, it's so much easier to do it then than it is in like a relationship or with my friendships or with some family. Those are the ones that are a lot harder and are not as cool to post on Instagram, and people don't necessarily understand them. They're not as like bright and shiny, but they have a tremendous impact on how I feel about my life and how motivated I am to do the things that I care about. And so my partner Kelly has this great line. She says, "Want to create a slower or more more space for or a slower pace for more space."
Mm.
And that's something that's been really powerful for me, but also like really difficult at times. And so the breath work is an amazing tool, but also creating space is a great tool as well. Taking a separation from something stressful that you're dealing with, whether it's even a decision, whether I want to start this business or not start this, or leave my job or move to a new town, like those are stressful decisions, and we can only think about them and ideate on them so much. We need to oftentimes like intuitively feel what is the best decision for us. And so you can, like you mentioned before, shake up that environment. I call it like shaking up the snow globe. Timely with the holiday season analogy. It helps us kind of see things in a clearer light or settle to the bottom of the pool, see things through a different lens. But for some people that can be easier, and for others it can be really difficult. And I found really type A driven, motivated, fiery people, it's a lot more difficult. So just sharing with anyone that's listening to this and understanding that it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, but you have a lot of practice with it, man. You put yourself in stressful situations purposefully, and I've heard you say that you use strength training as an outlet for working through some of life's struggles. And
Hmm.
so it's the art of practice. It's the art of getting reps and then the transferable skills that come from you participating in those very challenging things. What is that experience like, using strength training to help manage some of the internal intricacies associated with the struggles of life?
It's something that I've leaned into really young. And when I was younger, my parents got divorced when I was 14, and I really leaned into sports during that time and training, something that I could control. And so when the world outside of me felt out of control, I wanted to turn internal. And there's been periods of my life where that maybe wasn't healthy because I would avoid certain thoughts or feelings with exercise. But now I really view exercise as a way of exploration, and love, self love. And so now when I want to move my body or try a new skill or practice something new, it's a way for me to connect and express with myself creatively. Even if it is, like just a workout, there's so much going on within how I'm feeling that day and my internal dialogue that I get to have a practice of communicating as I'm killing myself on the ski erg or holding 300 pounds overhead and trying to balance it with one arm. Like, and then it falls, and then I have to pick it up again, and it's heavy, and I have to believe in myself that I can actually do it, and that this is something that I care about. And yeah, it's a really fun practice for me. But it all comes down to that one word, really, which is curiosity.
Mm-hmm. It's so fascinating because it's interesting to, from my lenses, see that like early on, the push was like outcome oriented. Hey, I want to make the football team. I want to perform well on the football team. Then I want to try to play college football and then try to become a professional. And then that led to becoming a strength coach. But then over the course of time, through your maturation, you eventually got to the point where your thought process and your relationship with fitness, it sounds like it changed. It became a tool for you and how you orient yourself and manage stress in the world, as opposed to just the outlet for distracting yourself from life's challenges. And my buddy who I mentioned to you, Logan Galbrick, who I was able to speak to earlier this week, he put something on his Twitter, his Threads account, that said, if working out is you pushing hard to satisfy this ego driven mantra of I'm working hard, but you're actually avoiding the things in real life, is it really working hard and working smart? And I probably bastardized the specific verbiage of what he said, but I think you're smart enough to kind of gather what I'm saying. And many high level athletes, I think, play with this. And it's a fine line to dance with, because it comes down to the intention of working out. If you're working out and it is practicing the deconstruction of stress and your breath work and practicing pausing and going at a space where now in the next element of your life, you're in a better space, you are in a better state to then manage all of those stresses, then dang, the workout was awesome and it was so useful for your life. But if you just buried yourself and then never really attacked the other stresses and you become avoidant and detached from the other things, now it's almost a crutch. You see what I'm saying there? It's like the same activity can be both positive and negative based on the intrinsic intention.
Yeah, 100%. That's so true. You see it a lot or hear about it a lot in long distance running. Like, what are you running from, or what are you running towards?
Ooh,
You're running to avoid certain things, um, and it comes down to your reasoning. Why is it that you're wanting to work out, run, do anything? Um, but it takes a space to create it in your life to, and ideally like some other people that you can bounce this idea off of, because it's hard to figure out why we're doing the things that we want to do alone. We can like, you know, articulate certain tweets or responses that we've heard other people say, but to really know like what is it that we truly want and what we truly find enjoyable and fun, like that is more difficult as we get older. And I live with a 7-year-old boy now, and he just does things because they're fun. He doesn't necessarily care about his ego, or I mean, he cares a little bit about like what other kids think of him, of course, but when he's at home, he's really safe and feels really comfortable. So he doesn't care if we're playing like, with his toys in the hallway versus outside shooting hoops or kicking around the soccer ball. He just wants to lean into fun and play. And that's one of the first questions I ask any of my clients is, what is your relationship with fun and play? And then going off of those answers, it kind of lets me know a lot about them and how they view, their life in a different way.
it's so cool to think about. Like early on, we don't really place meaning on fun and play. It's just for the sake of fun and play. We're in the sandbox building the thing because we want to build the thing. Not we're building the thing so we can take a picture and post it on social. You know what I mean? Like it changes over the course of time, the relationship of the meaning. How did you find your way into long distance running?
I am good buddies with Eric Hinman,
Mm-hmm.
who we've been training together on and off for like 7 or 8 years now. And my background was with Olympic weightlifting. And so I learned how to Olympic weightlift when I was a senior in high school before I played college football. And then I got into yoga and hand balancing and partner acrobatics and a lot of different modalities. But when we met up, he was really training a lot for CrossFit and came from an endurance background, Ironman world. And we both kind of had like different strengths there, and over time we kind of switched these strengths. And I've seen him really lean into the strength work and the the pause reps, the tension work, all the stuff that I have done and love to do. And he was always telling me about this endurance work and aerobic capacity and zone 2. And about 13, 14 months ago, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go out, and for the next 3 months, I'm going to figure out what my zone 2 is. And then I'm going to just not do any runs above that. And I'm just going to see if I can, lean into this practice and work on my aerobic capacity. Because I'd just been such an anaerobic athlete. Like when I'd start working out, my heart rate was boom 170, and we could chill there for a long time, but it was really burning myself out. I couldn't do it day in and day out. And so those 3 months, I started to feel great. I mean, my first run was a 15-minute mile at my zone 2. And that was really humbling. But I, again, was curious on, okay, I have no experience in this. What's the next step that I can do? And I could run almost every single day because I wasn't really running fast and I had built a lot of strength within my body. And so the next day it was like 14:30, then 14, and then 12. And then it hovered around 10-minute miles for a while. And that 3 months then turned into 6 months, and then turned into me signing up for a 100-mile race and a bunch of 50-mile races and 50Ks, and really starting to fall in love with the exploration of long distance running and what my body was capable of and is capable of. And so that's how I got into the running. And there's a lot, I think, beyond that physiologically, with the like repetition of one foot in front of the other, hearing that pitter patter on the ground, being outside in nature in the elements, especially a race, you're around a lot of other people. Like I just did a 100-mile race about 5 weeks ago in Arizona. And at the start line, you're there with like 850 people, and you're looking around and you're like, wow, these 850 people have thought about this race, thought about this moment, trained so hard, sacrificed so much with their family, their time, their money to be exactly where they are right now. We're all about to do this together. Like I started crying. I was like, this is so cool that we get so many like-hearted and minded people in the same place. And so, yeah, the ultra community is hands down the kindest, most supportive community I've ever been around in my life. Like by far, they are. So many high fives. You got it. Let's go. Nice work. Keep it up. Because everyone knows that it's difficult, and so they're wanting to support each other through that difficulty. And it's highly, highly, highly recommend long distance running.
What I love about that, Mike, is just watching you light up. It just shows that you're where you're supposed to be right now. You're doing the thing that is enhancing the quality of your life, and you're very fulfilled doing it. And I like seeing the shift in physiology and demeanor when we talk about that. How have you practiced the art of injury prevention in the pursuit of adding miles? I know you had the strength work previously, but running that long is different. There might be tendonitis issues, there might be plantar fasciitis, there might be nutrition components where your digestion goes a little bit off. Like it's not as easy as just putting one foot in front of the other. It is, but it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Like you have to listen to your body, right? And again, like be honest with how it is that you're feeling. It's similar thread. And so injuries oftentimes don't just, unless it's an acute injury, they're like a small whisper of like my ankle's kind of, my Achilles is a little bit tight. I can keep going. It's on my program. Let me just keep putting in that 6 mile run or that 8 mile run. And I've done I think a really good job of being able to hear when that little tweak or tightness kind of comes up, and then going like full healing motion on whatever that thing is. And if that means missing a run, I'll miss the run. If that means missing a race, I'll miss a race. Like I don't want to um, push myself into the ground so that I can't continue to do the things I love to do. And then with nutrition, that's a whole different beast. And understanding what foods work for you, what foods don't work for you. I have a pretty, I think a lot of us do, but I have a lot of experience with my own nutrition based on a sleeping disorder actually that I was diagnosed with when I was really young. It's called long sleeper syndrome, which essentially means the sleep doctors told me that my body needs more sleep than the average person for my cells to recover and regenerate overnight. And so they said average person needs like 7 to 8 hours, and you need 12 to 13 to get that
Whoa,
same effect.
that's a big
And
difference.
yeah, and I mean, I'll tell you the full story. I mean, when I was 5 years old, my parents, I would be this like Tasmanian devil if I didn't get enough sleep. And then my parents would put me down for a nap. I'd sleep for 4 hours, wake up as a completely different child. We did a sleep study overnight in New York City, and the doctors were like, hey, it's just a growing boy. He needs a lot of sleep. Let him sleep. And then when I was 13, I remember being so tired in school, like so tired in seventh and eighth grade that I'd go to the bathroom just to sleep in the stall, and I'd take like a quick 3 minute nap and then come back into class. And I'd save all of my energy for sports after school so I could play on the field, but it really stifled my ability to maintain focus in class. And so my grades would suffer. I'd come home after football practice and really be too tired to like do homework and lean into that. And my parents were like, you're just being lazy. You're not applying yourself. You're not focusing, which I totally get. But I'd go to sleep really early. I'd go to sleep at 7:30, 8 o'clock. And so we did another sleep study. And that's when I was diagnosed with this long sleeper syndrome. And they prescribed me with this pill called Provigil, which my experience with it was it basically just like gave me 2 hours of sleep. And so I took that every day for the next 9 years.
Whoa.
And then I went on this, what I called an alternative graduate studies program, where I traveled the world studying what makes people happy and healthy. Central America, South America, Europe, really all over, studying these different cultures, kind of like my own personal odyssey. And I didn't want to bring this pill with me. And I started learning from Paul Chek around that time and elimination diets. And when I eliminated gluten from my diet, all of a sudden I didn't need to take this pill anymore. I just needed to get like 8 or 9 hours of sleep. And so I've been gluten free for, what is it, 12 years now. but that really showed me the power of nutrition. So then we go back to distance running. What I'm putting and fueling into my body has a huge correlation with the energy and the output that I'm going to do. And it's going to be different based on the activity that I'm trying to accomplish for that day.
Really, really well thought out, man. And Paul Check, man, I got to get him on the show. He seems to keep coming up in almost every conversation that I'm having with people within our community. Such a great thought leader. I crossed paths with somebody recently and we were talking about the energy of water and hand balancing and rock stacking and understanding purification of water and things like that. And Paul Check's name came up again. He just seems to be such an innovator within the space and really pushing the boundaries early on, way before any of us were ready to receive it, where it seemed like wild and woo woo at the time, but now is coming to the forefront of many of our minds and brains and actions. It's like, whoa, this dude's really onto something. And I've seen it time and time again. I've heard him in the XPT community, kind of connecting with Laird and Gabby and a few others. I'm excited to try to cross paths with him.
Yeah, I did his course 12 years ago, and was really into subtle energy at that time, and it what felt kind of like airy fairy, but I was all about it. I was like, cool, I'll go see a medium. I'll do some meditations, and yeah, I think we all relate to it. I think today we might call it like a vibe or a connection, but I'm sure we've all had some type of an experience where we're working maybe with our back to a door and someone walks in and we don't see them, but we feel that they're upset or that they're really happy, and we're picking up on their that attunement of their vibrational energy, and you can really dive into that in a deeper level. I'll tell a quick story. I learned about this in college, this like little meditation with your hands where you take one hand up and you just like gently wave the other hand and focus on that meridian point in the middle of your palm where like you can focus a lot of energy in Chinese medicine. And you do it with both hands and you close your eyes and you really meditate on it for a while. And eventually you can start to feel that you're like holding a rod between your hands. You'll get some warming or cooling sensation in the middle of your hand. And you'll feel like you're holding this thing. And you can put any intention into that rod that you want, whether it's healing or positive energy. And then you can direct that in towards other people, towards yourself, towards an injury. And so right before I was going to intern for the New York Jets, we were going to build this huge gym in the ice arena of the college that I went to. And I dislocated my thumb like the day before. And my thumb was like pointing backwards.
Mm.
And so I quickly like, popped it back in. But I'd done that one time before, and I knew that my hand was going to get really black and blue and I wasn't going to be able to use it. And so I just learned this healing modality and I went out into the woods and I was like full bore believing that this was going to help me. And I went to the woods because nature is the most honest place, right? A tree is just going to grow towards the sun. Animals are going to eat when they're hungry. So if I felt like I wanted to get as much truth out of myself as possible, I wanted to be in the most honest, truthful place. And so I did this meditation for about an hour and I just put this healing energy into my thumb and I had no bruising. My hand was totally fine. Like it never even happened. And so after that, I really started to believe that there's a lot more going on than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And
You took the words
all,
right out of my mouth. I was going to say there's something to this human experience that is felt, not seen, and we can't exactly quantify it with words or with vision or with our senses. It's just something that's in there.
yeah, I mean, I've watched a few kung fu movies growing up, and you see like the ninja with his eyes covered, and he's getting attacked, and he's blocking off these attacks blindfolded. And in my like young mind, I was like, oh wow, he's picking up on those like intentions and able to make reactions to them. And so we can really extrapolate that with ourselves and our own, attunement to what it is that we truly desire. It just makes life a really fun way to live. That's a lot that what I'm describing now is a lot of magician
Yeah.
energy, but when you lean into that type of energy, um, life becomes really, really magical.
It also shows the power of the mind, right? If you possess this optimistic perception, then it's like inevitably, if you're putting in a meditation and healing energy, the outcome is probably going to be a little bit more optimistic than you like. It may not be exactly to the attunement of our expectations all the time, but it's probably going to be a little bit better. And I challenge people to try that. I'm definitely going to try what you just described with the two hands and the cooling and association with the rod and putting that energy in there and then sharing it with whether it's an energy or somebody else. It's a very cool practice. I'm very curious, Mike, what was the biggest lesson you learned on your odyssey when you were pursuing knowledge and trying to understand what makes people happy and healthy in other cultures?
Yeah, it was love. Like, love is the thing that is the most important. Loving your community, loving yourself, loving the place that you're in. The communities that I found that really felt like they were thriving were ones that had a ton of love, and they didn't let external expectations or perceptions get in the way of them being able to love themselves and each other.
Love is actually everywhere, right? Like that movie Love Actually. It's very special to think about. And I learned something very crucial from two of our really good friends, Sam Dancer and Matt Bickle. And I remember early on when I met them, I've known Sam now for almost a decade, which is wild. But he always used to say, "Hey, I love you, Bryce." And in the beginning, it made me feel weird. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to receive that. And then we had a conversation about it one day, and he was helping me understand like the way he loves fitness is way different than the way he loves Jen. And that's different than the way he loves Star. And it's different than the way he loves himself and the way he loves the sun and grounding and integrating himself with the community and those around him. And love is different. There's different forms of love. It's not all the same, but it's still love. And that was a very defining moment for me to better understand how to love other people and not shun them off or feel like you needed to be detached and you can only love those that are actual family. And it was a very special learning experience that I hope somebody hears that today and they're able to sit with that and think about their love for the people in their lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sam has a lot of love. I was just with him in in Austin, Texas, and he is amazing in that way. Such a full heart, and it's really inspiring to be around people that live such a heart-centered life.
What was your experience like out there, man? I saw that photo of all you guys flexing, looking super jacked at the On It Academy there in Austin. What was the experience like crossing paths with some of the world's most awesome fitness people?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, these a lot of these guys are my friends, and so we'll just we just like to hang out. We like to work out. We like to eat amazing acai bowls. We like to spend time outside. We like to do handstands. We like to get creative. Um, yeah, it's a really fulfilling space to be in. I was actually in Costa Rica on a one-on-one retreat with one of my clients before that, which was also extremely fulfilling experience. And then to come and be with my buddies and see what my friend Eric Hinman is really creating down there in Austin, bringing people together in community, was just really affirming on the importance of um, community and getting people into similar space. I was fortunate to lead a handstand workshop down there as well at this gym called Squatch Fitness, which was so cool, right? People are coming to this place. They're wanting to learn how to get upside down. They're really wanting to learn how to play and have fun. And the more tools and strength and awareness we have, the more fun that we can have. When in this case, it goes with handstand, but in life, it goes with everything. Like the more tools we have to modulate our nervous system, to understand our thoughts, to let things go, to take space. Now we're just creating more room to rebalance our life when we feel like it's getting maybe out to those extremes.
That's awesome, man. I just think it's so rad that you have developed this amazing relationship with being upside down, becoming a handstand expert and enthusiast, and finding ways to progressively share that with other people. But it's challenging to conceptually understand that. You're a football guy back in the day, man. And I don't actually think that, but the world would put you in that box, right? Like you're an anaerobic athlete, you're a meathead, like you're squat, bench, deadlift, power clean. Like, how did you find the ability to scratch that itch in all these other spaces? Because it's like you mentioned acrobatics, you mentioned hand balancing, you've spent quite a bit of time in the yogi world, and then you shared briefly about how you connected with Eric Hinman and went from being this power athlete over to an endurance athlete. But how did you find yoga and hand balancing and the ability to make that a strength of yours? Like most people would dabble with it, like, yeah, I've done that before, but it's not really my thing. But it sounds like you really like marinate yourself in these things until it becomes something that's accessible and in your back pocket when you need it.
Yeah, I like the idea of, I'm definitely not a master at any of these things, but I do love the idea of exploring them and attaining certain skills. I think that's one that for me with hand balancing as an example has been really fun. Like when I got into yoga after a breakup, and I was again in this like holistic wellness airy fairy type of field, and studying with Paul Chek and like subtle energy and all this type of stuff, and was like, let me try yoga class. I've maybe done a few before, but I found this studio that I really fell in love with, and the timing of the classes was great, and it was hot, and the flow of the class was cool. Like the teachers we'd go through different vinyasa style, poses, asanas, and then it'd be like some peak pose, and it was like I was learning something new every class, like a different bind or a different arm balance or a different inversion. And then one day I saw this woman at the front of the class just like inhale her arm.
Oh, I love that you spent time with him. I actually feel Ido Portal energy from you. I love that he always talks about, instead of Z squat, he says Z folding of the legs. That's rad. I just used something I learned from him. I think I heard him, I forgot which podcast I listened to him on. And then obviously watched when he was working with Conor McGregor. But I love the single arm hang. It is such a humbling experience to develop the scapular strength and control and grip strength and managing the humility and deconstruction of the left side versus the right side and seeing the huge differences. And I was just using that last night with somebody that was battling an elbow issue. And this is week 3 of that gradual progression of the single arm hang. And it's actually been helping one of my athletes. And I just remember last night being like, never met you before, but thank you, Ito. Mm-hmm. I saw you doing that with Sam, man, and he's not a little boy to balance. Yep. I look forward to learning from you, man. That's definitely not a field. I've done it a couple times, just kind of tinkering in the lab, but not a place that I have a ton of experience. But I am totally open and excited to learn and play and explore. And where I'd love to take the conversation, man, is you've got some world records, man. It's pretty cool stuff. You have a one arm overhead squat at 315 pounds. You have a two hand anyhow lift that I don't even know what that is with 430 pounds. I've seen you do a reverse snatch before pursuing 250 pounds, which is unreal to me. I mean, 250-pound normal snatch is challenging for most people. And then this Turkish get up world record, which I definitely wanna unpack the motivation behind that a little bit with you. But where does that come from? The pursuit of wanting to do some of these different types of strength feats. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Where's the edge? How far can we take it and can we exceed the edge? It's cool too to hear like the intrinsic mantras that you use and how you never really shy away from the basics and generating torque in the shoulder, understanding how to screw into the floor, armpits forward or elbow pads forward, and pressing through the finger pads. These are all things that in the beginning sound overwhelming to the beginner, but over a course of, and that would probably be categorized as like conscious competence, and then over the course of time it's almost like unconscious competence for you where you just do it as your default to generate tension and safety in pursuit of some of these more challenging skills. I love that the foundations though are still there and still serving you and helping you along the way, which is very cool. What is it about this one arm overhead squat that raises my eyebrows so much, man? Bickle and I talk about that all the time. I've overhead squatted 315 a few times. I think it's my 5 rep max of all time, and I'll probably never do that again. And I'm looking at you doing that with one arm, the scapular strength and stability, the confidence and wherewithal to even pursue something like that. Where does that one come from, man? And I don't even know where to start. Mm. Got to get the 3 wheels, man. I want to call it like the heaviest question of all time because it's just one arm overhead. Like, I don't know why that's what comes to mind. What is something you did as a child that you no longer do as an adult? For many, that answer is play. RX Smart Gear allows for your daily workouts to turn into play and exploration. In my training, the Frevo rope gives me access to a versatile rope that I can take with me wherever I go. On the road, at the beach, to the park, or playing at home, RX Smart Gear jump ropes fit my needs. We at Allsmith trust RX Smart Gear. Their gear is always reliable and gives me peace of mind that I will have top-notch equipment to support my health and fitness journey. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use the discount code ALLSMITH to shop their latest cutting-edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you. Where I want to explore next with you, Mike, is the relationship you have with mental health and suicide prevention. I know that was a huge proponent into the motivation behind the Turkish Get Up world record. And I want to unpack that a little bit as I think it's really meaningful to our audience. That's so special, man. I really appreciate you sharing that. What was your experience like at the Leadville 100? 100-mile run that has a huge altitude enhancement. It's in the Rocky Mountains. There's a ton of elevation gain. It absolutely takes grit, guts, and determination. What was your experience like there? Mm. Yeah. Ooh. A lot of food's going to be going down those few weeks, man. Dude, I'm pumped for you. I was actually going to ask you what was next on your list. What's it like partnering with Garmin as you're now involved in a lot of these endurance feats and being able to have that technology to manage some of your heart rate, your physiology, and knowing the path and the trails that you're on? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really honor that. That's a special one. The SEAL community likes to say, make it to your next meal one step at a time. Best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. All those things sound great and they're amazing for podcasts, but to actually live it and look down and see the numerical value of how far you have to go, just trying to make it to the next light post or trying to make it to that next ridge are really great practices that you're not just talking about, man, you're living it. As we wrap things up today, man, what's a story that you once told yourself that's no longer serving you? Mm-hmm. Mm. That's special, man. I really appreciate you sharing that. And today was fun, man. I am so excited that I was able to connect with you and storytell and peel back the layers of the onion to better get to know you, your goals, your mission, and some of the amazing feats that you've accomplished in your life. Is there anything that is ruminating inside your mind or your heart that you would like to say or share that we did not touch on today? Ladies and gentlemen, the legend, Mike Aidala. That was amazing, man. I look forward to meeting you in person and building some memories and taking on some fun adventures together. For those of you listening or observing on YouTube, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And remember, greatness is forged, not found. Till next time, guys.